Welcome back to another feature here from Inside Pack Sports on YouTube. As always, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe at Inside Pack Sports here for the latest content. And today I have with me film guru, O-line guru from the website Alex Gee. Alex, glad to have you here, man.
All I'm thinking is I got to get me a hat like you got. It's a nice hat.
I got one or two for you. Just hit me up. I got a couple of them for you.
There we go.
Let's do it. Let's talk Jakarius Peak. I've been wanting to do this because as we lead into the start of the 2025 season, I feel like this might be a guy you could make a case to be NC State's best player going into the year. And I don't think you'd have anybody, if you polled them, that would tell you that among the fan base, Alex. And look, I think it's funny to start with. We're talking about a guy I know you're very, very high on. And when we were looking at his season here at right tackle from the 2024 year, did not make a single All-ACC team. And we're about to give you some numbers that would suggest what a miss. What a miss, right, Alex? Because he had a big time 2024 season.
Huge miss. And look, I'm not quiet about being critical of PFF
Yeah.
at times, right? But
Yeah.
it's a standard grading system that they're using. So if he's grading higher than a lot of these guys, like that's a good way to use it. I might disagree with some of the numbers occasionally, but he passes the eye test more than anything, right? Like you turn the game on and you watch NC State play offensive football last year, and in my mind, he was the guy that kind of stood out at times. Like more often than not, he was the guy that stood out. He shared it with some folks like Justin Jolie made a lot of great plays. Anthony Belton was really good up front for State. Anthony Carter returning at left guard was really good up front for State too. But Jakarius Peak has some tools that just not a lot of people have. And I mean, it looks like he could tie his shoes standing up, right? Like he's got long arms. His frame is not, he's not like a huge guy, but he carries his weight so well, and he plays like it too. And it's funny. You look at him, and I remember when he kind of made his way into the starting lineup for NC State 2 seasons ago. I think it was the Louisville game was his first start. A lot of people were looking at it like I think he played at like 265, like which is actually crazy. But you watch that tape back, and you'd expect him to be pretty good in the pass protection game and maybe get pushed around in the run blocking game. It was almost the opposite for times there last year, man. He finishes people. He can get after it going forward and going backwards. He's just a really, really special player.
Yeah, we're going to look here at the grades from PFF of Jacarrius Peak from the right tackle position. Here you see his full overall profile and really, really good year, 78.7 overall grade, which would rank among the top on NC State's team. And then when you look at how he compares across Power 5 football, so you look at the tackle position in Power 5 football, and this here chart is with minimum blocking of 80% of snaps, which we're basically looking at your starters across P5 football. And this is ranked according to pass blocking, and he's 12th overall among all pass blockers in P5 football, and he would rank second in the ACC behind Duke's Brian Parker. Now, if you rank this or rate it according to overall offensive grade, Jakarius would then go to 8th overall, again, right behind Parker. And if you rank it on run blocking grade, so if you relook at it just based on run blocking, where Alex pointed out a strength for him despite his size, 6th best overall, which would be above Parker and be the top among all ACC players for last year. Alex, that's not just returning guys this year. This were guys last year at the tackle position. And we're talking about a guy who did not make a single All-ACC team last
No,
season.
it's bonkers, and you're just talking about the kid from Duke who was picked to be third team All American preseason by Phil Steele. I'm pretty sure it was the publication that did that.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think he's flying under the radar, and I'm not sure I understand it. I'm very interested to see where this is probably a better Philip Danford question because he does a really nice job looking at like NFL potential. I'd kind of just look at more from just the college game. But I'm very curious to see how he projects in the mind of an NFL scout because look, my simple mind looks at it and says, I think that's a kid that can carry 20 more pounds. He already plays strong, plays with a great base, plays with great finish. He's very physical. His feet are incredibly fluid. Like I would look at that guy and be like, that's somebody I want to spend a third, fourth round pick on because he could play in the league. And the fact that he's not getting the recognition that I think he deserves is pretty crazy.
Well, I want to say, I believe last year, for whatever reason, he was not on the ballot for media members to vote on. I don't recall seeing him on the ballot. And if he was, someone can correct me. I don't recall seeing him on there. So that, I'm sure, played an obvious role, which is weird. I mean, I would think you should be able to just vote on somebody who clearly stands out. Now, we talked about it off air. I think he is on a couple of preseason All-ACC teams already. And you know what that is. That's media members going out doing their work and saying, hey, if I'm using PFF, because I told you, I'm a lot like you. I don't lean on PFF a lot, but what I do tend to lean on them for would be O-line, D-line, simply because somebody's grading the film, right? It's just hard for the casual fan to look at that and grade it. Whereas at least you can say, give them the benefit of the doubt there that they're looking at it to some degree on O-line, D-line. And so I would think a lot of media members will use PFF and say, hey, let's kind of sort it. Who's returning? All those different things. Let's see. And I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a guy who last year you could have made a case for being the top tackle in the ACC. He definitely should be that case moving into this year. And we've seen him make a couple of preseason All-ACC teams. But before we get going here, and we've talked a lot about the positives of Jakarius, and rightfully so, he's making a big transition this year. With NC State losing Anthony Belton at left tackle, the expectation is he's going to slide to that left tackle position and protect the blind side or the backside of C.J. Bailey. How do you view that transition for Jacarrius, Alex? And do you think it's something that's risky if you're NC State?
I don't think it's risky because you're putting your two best guys beside each other, and you're going to be really, really good on the left side, and with Jacarrius and Anthony Carter next to each other. The transition from right to left is daunting if you're doing it on like a week to week basis or like a down to down basis, just because you're flipping everything you're doing, right? You know, you're on the right side of the field, you're in a right-handed stance, meaning your right foot is back, your right hand is down. You know, you're setting out to your right more often and you're powering back up to your left, versus everything's the inverse if you're on the left side, right? Left-handed stance, left sets, power back to the right. So, you know, if you're changing what you do on a game to game, week to week basis by playing different sides, that's really, really hard. Like if this was a mid-season switch, I think that'd be cause for concern. But he went through the spring doing this, right? And I believe he played the ECU game at left tackle as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty confident that's the case because Anthony Belton set out. So we've seen him do it, and we've seen him play well. And I think it's the right switch, and it's the best thing for him. And you know, now you know it's the old adage that everybody likes to talk about. It's the blind side, right? You're protecting your most valuable asset with your best guy, right? So you're setting yourself up for the most success that you can have offensively, I think, by making that switch.
Finally, before we get going, we discussed this a little bit off air at the beginning. Who do you believe to be NC State's best player returning this year? And when you look at these numbers and you're talking about a guy who could arguably be the best at his position, I think you can make a valid argument for Jacarrius Peak. Who would you go with, Alex, and who would you have in kind of that group that you're judging here going into the season?
Yeah, we were talking about off air. I think you probably got the more, and I've thought about it more since we started talking. I think you probably got a 1A, 1B situation, in my opinion. Justin Jolie and Jacarrius Peak are probably your two best players. And then you think midway through the year, I'd love to revisit this because I think Brandon Cleveland is poised to have a really, really big season, and he could be a difference maker for NC State. We've seen that, and I think he's incredibly talented. Like, to me, those three guys, if those are the three names that if they had entered the transfer portal, like that's when you wave the white flag. Things are really, really bad. And further, if any of those three enter the transfer portal, they're playing at a big time SEC school and they're starting without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think like when we've talked a lot about the transfer portal and what you added, what you lost, all those different things. You have to give NC State staff and their collective a lot of credit to be able to retain those three guys. Plus, you add in a Sean Brown for sure. You know, when you look at those four, because Sean's been getting some first team All-ACC buzz, to be able to retain those four players, I think they deserve a ton of credit for that. When folks get, you know, they look at, okay, well, where's your budget going? Why can't you get more out of the portal? Why can't you get more out of high school? I tell folks all the time, Alex, it starts with retaining your current guys. Yep. That's not cheap. You mentioned it. If they go into the portal, it's almost over. And so to be able to retain that quartet, those four guys, that core group, I think that was a really, really good job by NC State's staff and collective.
Absolutely. I mean, throw C.J. Bailey, throw Hollywood Smothers in there, add those names to the list. Like those are those are guys that would command attention in the transfer portal and would be hard to retain. I mean, I think we see that across a lot of NC State sports, and it does get taken for granted occasionally. But, you know, you got to keep your best guys. Otherwise, you're just constantly rebuilding. That's really, really hard to do.
NC State offensive lineman Jakarius Peak. We think he might be State's best player. He's certainly one of the top returning offensive linemen in the ACC. He's generated a lot of buzz. We wanted to go and give you guys some insight on him today because we don't feel like he's getting a ton of attention around the program, around the fan base, certainly to the level he deserves. So I wanted to discuss him today. As I mentioned at the beginning, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe at Inside Pack Sports here on YouTube. Also, check out the website, www.insidepacksports.com, for the latest coverage of NC State athletics.